Hi folks, my name is Greg Durrett of Future Secured Financial, and in this presentation we're going to give you a little glimpse into, actually a lot of glimpse, very detailed glimpse into how it is that we are able to structure such creative and useful protected plans for folks that come to us. We like to call them legacy plans. This and all the details you're going to see inside are an amalgamation of all sorts of different clients that we've worked with throughout the country and putting together all of what it is that we can do. We brought in parts and pieces for everyone to create a fictitious client that we'll be able to show you the details of, that in some one way, fashion, form, or otherwise, we've actually done each of these types of pieces for the folks individually, and we've just kind of combined them into an imaginary client named XYZ. How creative. All right, so this client XYZ had assets that were coming into play at $3 million in cash, $500,000 in an IRA, $5,000 annual pension, $1 million home, $40,000 in estimated Social Security payments that were going to begin at age 70, $500,000 of term life insurance expiring at age 70, a $500,000 term insurance policy expiring at age 74, another $1 million term insurance policy expiring at age 83, and $65,000 of unused capital gains losses. All right, so we put it together and said, all right, well, let's look at the liabilities. What other liabilities do you have? No debt and no other stated liabilities. That is an efficient start to a plan. So what is the set of targets that we had to set for this client, or actually they set for us? The target goal one was, of course, to focus on income. What do they want for income to start now that they're in this retired phase? $100,000 annually at minimum. Want to make sure that can be inflation adjusted, and of course, only upward. Imagine inflation going down. Well, it could happen. And it was to commence immediately because retirement commenced immediately. All right, target two is liquidity. Well, it's nice to have income, but you have to have cash on hand. So what did they want for cash on hand? Well, $200,000 cash on hand, meaning can I reach out and touch it and get it? Not in your mattress, but in some sort of financial institution. Want that to be inflation adjusted if possible. And of course, that cash is going to be on hand right away. What about target goal number 3? The remainder of the estate, what we like to call the financial legacy. Well, let's see what we got there. They want $3 million delivered to the trust. They want $1 million home transferred to the spouse. They want to minimize or eliminate tax liability for transferring of both. Eliminate the memory burden on loved ones. And of course, that's going to commence on death. Do you know what we mean by memory burden? Memory burden is such that if you were to pass away and not have your affairs in order and leave them to your estate and your heirs to handle, instead of thinking about just the good things and the great life and the parts and pieces that made everybody happy and enjoy your presence, what that instead is replaced with is having to sort through a giant mess of stuff and losing a lot of money in the process to the tax liabilities and everything else, and not really having the good feelings left. They having the last great feeling you're leaving them is with utter chaos. So that's where we like to eliminate the memory burden and give them the good memory only. All right, so what are the risk factors and exposures that we have to deal with here? Well, long-term care is a risk, and the costs associated with it are also an exposure. Income taxes, of course, risk and exposure. Estate taxes varies by state, but yes, they can be daunting. Inflation. Inflation is always omnipresent, right? And of course, longevity. My word, imagine that. Longevity is a risk factor and an exposure. It is. If you live longer than you intended and you haven't properly planned for that, you're going to run out of money. That is not a place you want to be. All right, so now target goal number 4, we want to eliminate all these risk factors in goals 1, 2, and 3. Period, end of story, right? We want to make sure income is protected, liquidity is protected, and of course, the financial legacy is protected. And when do we want that to happen? We want it to happen now. All right, well, let's take a look at what we're ultimately doing. We're taking your income, liquidity, and estate, and we're throwing it in a bucket. We're mixing it all up, and ultimately the goal is going to be your financial legacy. How do we get there? Well, I'm going to show you the roadmap. All right, you can pause this, read it, but the numbers you see here, most important, the numbers you see next will never ever be reduced by market fluctuations, and you'll never be at risk of loss or suffer a reduction in these benefits. These are all guaranteed results. So how do we get to achievement number one, protecting income? Well, let's look at what we've got. We've got a $5,000 annual pension. We've got about $30,000 readjusted for Social Security. We have 1.75 million of what? Cash. Right? Cash. We're taking cash. That's going to produce $78,000 a year, and it's going to inflation adjust up to 10% a year to keep pace with everything else. That's going to produce $113,000 of income. That's $13,000 more than was initially required. Liquidity. Yep, here's your $200,000. Cash on hand, put it in your bank, put it in your back pocket, put it in your mattress. It's cash on hand. Achievement 3, estate. We want to protect the estate. Okay, well, how do we do that? We're going to take 1.05 million taxable cash. We're going to get a life insurance policy worth $3 million guaranteed to age 100, and we're going to cancel all those term policies. What happens is we have now converted at $3 million cash estate into a $3 million income tax-free estate. It's quite remarkable, actually, for a single premium payment. What about the legacy? Well, let's see how it's working here. We got another legacy piece that we got to put together, right? We got this IRA hanging out there. We're using that to fund a long-term care program. We're going to get rid of the tax liabilities in year one, and we're going to eliminate the RMDs, required minimum distributions, that were lurking, that would actually start messing up more of what it is that we're doing. So we're going to fund a $1 million long-term care program with that $500,000 taxable estate. So how are we allocating all of these things? Let's do an overview of the allocations. We got income. We're committing $1.75 million in cash to income. We're committing $200,000 of cash for liquidity. We're committing $1.05 million of cash to preserve the estate. Converts it right back into a $3 million income tax-free estate. And we're going to take that $500,000 legacy IRA and convert that into a long-term care program. So the results are what? Income is $113,000 a year, upwardly adjusted for inflation. And we can even extend that for the life of the spouse as well. $200,000 in cash, $3 million to the estate, tax-free, income tax-free, eliminating the premium of $10,000 a year and stabilizing the transfer because we're getting rid of that silly term insurance that they had there. And the legacy is another $1 million. That's that long-term care of providing at least a minimum of 7 years of in-home nursing care, nursing home care, whatever the case may be. Therefore, we are now also insulating all these other assets from any claims that could come as a result of nursing home care. Quite remarkable. So this is how it gets allocated out. Feel free to take a look. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these again, but if you see the allocations, how they break down to detail, is how they work. including how we're accounting for taxes. Oh, and by the way, one other little thing. If you don't use the long-term care, it will produce an additional $1 million of death benefit. Imagine that. So if you don't use your long-term care and you pass away, all that money is not lost. That money comes back to your estate, and again, another income tax-free $1 million nut. So in actual fact, for the timing to show that you would pass away early, the estate would have actually $4 million in it instead of $3. So what does that mean? That's a pretty safe money solution. Now, if you do things the way they exist, staying the course, hey, I don't want to mess around with anything I've got. I'm happy taking all these, these like barely not even 2% annual earnings, and having exposure to taxes, and having inefficient transfers, and having everything just kind of thrown up in the wind, and maybe even running out of life insurance because, you know, they are going to expire. Well, guess what? Market risk, estate risk, and health risk. If you start really adding all this up, it makes no sense at all, because it is your legacy that is now put at risk. So let's summarize this for a second. Read that statement while I read it to you. The best legacy is to have lived well, burdened no one, prepared responsibly, and left only good memories to be cherished. No truer statement could be made. So we showed you how we could do all these different things, dealing with tax issues, transfer issues, health issues, how you can live well, inflation, all in a zero risk environment. Quite powerful. This is how we do safe money strategic planning. My name is Greg Durrett with Future Secured Financial. Been doing this type of work for over 33 years, and we'd like to be able to try to help you as well. Give us a call. We'll see if we can't sit down and find a legacy solution for you. Thank you.